Okay, so we are going to discuss the poem called Human Seasons, which is written by John Keats, right? So the poem Human Seasons is a metaphorically you understand that called as a direct compares the stages of human life. Human life to the what? Human life to the four seasons of the year. So the poem explores how each phase of life that brings a different goal or perspective and emotional state. Like you talk about, the poet states the first one, which is called as a spring season, right? And when he talks about spring season, that represents what? Young age, youthful, right? That shows enthusiasm and you can say naivety. Enthusiasm means interest and naivety means called as a new. So when you are new, fresher, you want to do many things, right? And you have a lot of interest to do something, right? So in this, actually, the poet stated that where beauty is easily appreciated. So in spring season, second is called as a summer. Summer is a time of reflection and where one nostalgically or called as a remembering the enjoyment. So that he or she has found out during the youthful time or youthful, you can say that it's a youthful memories, isn't it? And attaining a higher sense of self-awareness. Then the third one, which you talk about, it's called as autumn season. In autumn, the poet stated that it brings quite introspection, right? Quite introspection, it's called as a silently you observe, silently you think. So silently you make yourself satisfy, contentment, and also you can say you accept. You accept what? Now, whatever is happening in your life is or uncertainty is happening in your life, you accept it. Uncertainty means what? That's something which you are not planned, isn't it? So finally, the poet stated about winter, and he said that what winter symbolizes what symbolizes old age. So this winter season symbolizes old age and mortality, making the natural conclusion of life. It is nothing but the final one, right? So John Keats' use of vivid imagery, personification, and seasonal symbolism that clearly focuses the connection between what human existence and nature's cycles, isn't it? So, and despite his young age, Keats captured the surety of aging with a philosophical depth and celebrating nothing but what? Life's transient beauty. Isn't it? So that's what is called as a John Keats poem. But at the same time, if we go to the deeper part of it, what we find out here, when we read the poem states here, four seasons fills the measures of the year. Four seasons feel the measure of the year. There are four seasons in the mind of man. He has his lusty spring when fancy clear, takes in all beauty with an easy span. He has his summer when luxuriously springs on it cud of youthful thoughts, thought he loves to ruminate, and by such dreaming high, is the nearest unto heaven, quite goes. His soul has in its autumn, when it winks, he falleth close, contented so to look, on mist in idleness, to let fair things pass by unheeded as a threshold brook. He has his winter too, of pale misfeature, or else he would forgo his immortal nature. Now, if you observe that, the poem which is written by John Keats, it presents an extended comparison or called as a metaphor, comparing the stages of human life to the four seasons of the year. And the poet stated that what season symbolizes a different phase in a person's journey from youth to old age. From youth to old age. Like in the first two lines, where we find out, the poet stated four seasons feel the measure of the year. There are four seasons in the mind of man. So, what did the poet wants to say, convey here? The poet stated that, or John Keats begins by drawing a parallel between what the natural world and human existence. The natural world and human existence. He said that just as the year is divided into four seasons, like it is stated, no, four seasons feel the measure of the year. So the poet said, just as the year is divided into four seasons like spring, summer, autumn, and winter. So there are four seasons in the mind of man. It means so too is a person's life divided into different phases, isn't it? So that is what. Then in the third and fourth, he said that he has his lusty spring when fancy clear, takes in all beauty with an easy span. He has it lost his spring. Like spring represents youth. He said that. Spring represents also what that called as a time of energy and a curiosity, interest. So the word lusty suggest what? Interest. He has his interest, right? Lusty spring. So suggest enthusiasm and also energy, right? Vigor. So while fancy clear refers to a nothing but a youthful imagination, right? That is fresh and unclouded. So something like a no confusion by experience, right? So the poet stated that what the spring season is like the youthful season, and during this stage, what happened? A person perceives what beauty. Youngest time, no person perceives beauty effortlessly and holding the world with a wonder and excitement, isn't it? So, in a line 5 and 6, you would find out the poet again said that he has his summer. So, he talks about the next season. What is the next season? That called as a summer season. So, the poet said that in means after the young age, you would find out that what the summer season, after the spring season, you would find out the summer season. When luxuriously springs, that honeyed chord, HONID, honeyed chord of youthful thoughts he loves. Right. So summer symbolizes what? Early adulthood. Early adulthood. So a time of involvement, indulgence, and reflection. The when you find out the phrase which is stated that honeyed court, right, that refers to nothing but the sweet memories of youth. Honeyed court is called as the sweet memories of youth, which the person now contemplates with a pleasure, right? And he remembers them, and he finds out the happiness. So just as animals chew cod to extract more nourishment, isn't it? Like you find out that sugar cane when it is, means bind, and when it is cut, and when it is, chopped, and when it is being, smashed, the juicy things coming out of it. Likewise, you would find out the after the youthful age, when the means at early adulthood comes out, at the same time what happened means the poet stated that like the animal chew caught to extract more nourishment, more, means shining. Similar to that, the individual relieves the youthful experiences, young age experiences, and savoring their sweetness, enjoying their sweetness, isn't it? That's what it is stated. He has his summer when luxuriously springs a honeyed caught of youthful thought he loves. It is indicating nothing but how the poet talks about the early adulthood that does nothing but what extract more nourishment and also savoring their sweetness, isn't it? Next is called as a 7 and 8 line, which is indicating to ruminate, and by such dreaming high is nearest unto heaven. quiet copes. Now, look into the word called as a ruminating, right? Or ruminate. So, the act of rumination is called as the act of deep thinking. The act of deep thinking during summer allows the individual to reach a state of what happiness and fulfillment. Happiness and fulfillment. And the poet when said that what to ruminate and by such dreaming high. So dreaming high suggests nothing but the aspiration, right? Dreaming high means suggests ambition. Dreaming high makes a connection to the means beauty, sublime, bringing the person, spiritually closer to the God, isn't it? So the mention of quiet to nearest is nearest unto heaven, quiet copes. So the mention of quiet copes that indicates nothing but a peaceful state of mind. Peaceful state of mind where one can retreat, one can reflect, one can retreat, one can reflect, one can, remember those are the things. So then we talk about the line 9 and 10, where the poet stated, his soul has in its autumn, his soul has in its autumn, when his wings he furieth close, contented so to look. So the poet begins with the next season. So what do we find out? We find out the spring, we find out autumn, we find out what? Summer, right? So next the poet is, spring, summer and autumn. So what we find out that the poet stated that autumn represents nothing but the middle age, isn't it? Spring shows nothing but the early age, right? Uh, then after summer finds out nothing but the early adulthood age. Then autumn represents nothing but the middle age, which is stated, his soul has in its autumn, when his wings he furieth close, contented so to look. It means the poet states about the next season, which is known as autumn, and that represents middle age, right? And middle age is a time of nothing but a slowing down and finding contentment. Contentment means called as a happiness, right? Satisfaction. So when the poet uses the phrase called a furious close, so what do you mean by furious close? The meaning of furious close is called as a means how the poet stated that the wings are folding. Wings are folding suggests nothing but a retreat from active pursuits or active interest, as the individual holds a quieter, more contemplative life. So instead of chasing dreams, he is satisfied with observing the world around him or her. Right? So then we talk about 11 and 12 lines. So what that 11 and 12 line reads out, the poet stated, unmissed in idleness, to let fair things pass by unheeded as a threshold brook. Right. So the what did the poet say? Unmissed in idleness to let fair things pass by unheeded as a threshold brook. So in this stage, right, life becomes what? More passive. Life becomes more passive. So the mist in idleness, when you say that the mist in idleness, mist means what? That called as a covering with a hazy environment, unclear environment. During the winter season, you find out the mist, isn't it? So the mist in idleness symbolizes nothing but a hazy, reflective state where the person is not engaged in worldly affairs. Right. So the poet says that fair things pass. Fair things pass by unheeded as a threshold brook. It indicates that fair things pass by unheeded, suggests that the individual no longer desires excitement, no longer desires beauty even as eagerly as in youth, isn't it? So the poet states that life flows by like a gentle brook. What do you mean by brook? That called as a water, right? Lake of the water, isn't it? So how does that the lake flows, right? Without even caring who did it pass, right? So like that, life flows by like a gentle brook at the threshold, a door unnoticed yet persistent. Unnoticed, it doesn't notice anything, and it continues to means change its goal. Right. So in the final couplet, why do I say couplet? Because two lines present the same rhyming scheme. Right. That he has his winter. Listen. He has his winter to a pale misfeature, or else he would forego his mortal nature. So what does the poet point out at the last couplet? It's called as a winter represents old age, right? A time of physical decline when you say that pale misfeature. So, what do you mean by pale misfeature? That's suggesting nothing but a fading vitality. You don't have energy, right? So, your energy is going down, right, gradually. And possibly you turn into disfigurement. Disfigurement means you do not look quite good, right? And this stage is surely come, inevitable. Like, so if one did not experience it, there would not be human being even, because that's what he has is a winter too, a pale misfeature, or else he would forego his mortal nature. It indicates that the stage is surely come, and if one did not experience this, so definitely that human being would not be considered human being, isn't it? So the phrase forgo his mortal nature, that implies what? Aging and mortality. These are nothing but intrinsic. Intrinsic to what? Human existence, and you can say that completing the cycle of life, isn't it? So what are they? Now, like we find out that the first one is called as what is that? All those four seasons, and how that four seasons called as a spring, summer, autumn, and winter, isn't it? So the poet at the end wants to convey that life as a natural, right? So cyclical process where each season represents what? A different stage of human growth, right? Youth is a spring, so which is filled with enthusiasm. Adulthood is referring summer. It is a time of reflection and ambition. Middle age is called as autumn, autumn season. So that brings acceptance and contentment. And old age that points out to winter season that marks the final phase from means before death, isn't it? So by doing this metaphor comparison, so again, John Keats highlight what the beauty of life's progression and surely the change in it, isn't it? That is what the point all about it. So if you talk about this, the idea is nothing but indicating about the cycle of life, right? The passage of time, mortality and acceptance. And you can talk about structure and form, right? So all these things which are beautify the point which is written by John. Okay.